Welcome to Beverly Unitarian Church online service. I'm Judy Shader. I'm a worship associate, and I am so glad to welcome you to worship here today. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation of children, youth, and adults of many races, religions, secular identities, genders, sexual orientations, abilities, educations, life experience, and traditions. Here we celebrate a diversity of belief, trying always to make space for more. All of you are sacred. You're welcome here. Whatever your past or your present is like, we invite you to walk into the future with us. Like other Unitarian Universalist congregations, we affirm 7 principles, which are not doctrine or dogma, but rather our shared values and moral guide. To learn more about these principles, please visit the website of our denomination, www.uua.org. Our minister is the Reverend David Schwartz. Today, we are fortunate to have as our speaker the Reverend Karen Mooney. We especially welcome visitors and hope you'll stay for our virtual coffee hour after the service on Zoom, using the link that will be shared in the chat. We look forward to the day when we will be able to meet you in person. Although we currently remain distance physically, we can stay connected. To get more involved, check out our Facebook page and our website. Contact the office to sign up for our monthly newsletter and weekly Friday email blast to be connected to Reverend David for pastoral care. And now, let us join together in spirit and prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Welcome to Beverly Unitarian Church. My name is Karen Mooney. I serve as the sabbatical minister at the Unitarian Universalist Advocacy Network of Illinois and as the director of congregational life at the Unitarian Church of Evanston. I am a lifelong Unitarian Universalist who learned the art of church from my very involved parents. I've been educated far and wide by people working and playing, listening and talking, including folks in your congregation. I love that UU communities are places where I find people who are alive and seeking throughout their lives. Welcome to this virtual service. Welcome if you are a pagan, Christian, Jew, Buddhist, Sikh, or a freewheeling thinker of big thoughts. Welcome after a week of news, change, celebration. Welcome to this space of wonder and resolve.
We light this chalice, grateful for the love that we experience in this gathered community. May the flame light the way for all who seek such abundance.
Blessings of a Threshold by John O'Donohue. Now is the time of invitation. Crossing a frontier you did not expect, abruptly your old life seems distant. You barely noticed how each day opened a path through fields never questioned, yet expected deep down to hold treasure. Now the questions loom large, larger than all that is known, and what is expected has slipped from sight. As you pause on this threshold of teetering uncertainty, may grace come to restore you to balance. May it shape a new space in your heart to embrace this change as a teacher who has come to open your life to new worlds. May you find in yourself a courageous hospitality towards what is difficult, painful, unknown. May you learn to use this change as a lantern to illuminate the new qualities that will emerge in you. May the fragile harvesting of this slow light help you to release whatever has become false in you. May you trust this light to clear a path through all the fog of old unease and anxiety until you feel arise within you a tranquility profound enough to call this a storm to stillness.
This is for my grandmothers. One of them Creek, Choctaw. Another Cherokee.
Our story today is from freestoriesforkids.com. This one is My Little World is Broken. Once upon a time, there was a spring that lived in the tip of a pen. He heard noises from outside of the pen, but he did not believe that there was anything good outside of the pen. So he was content to compress and stretch and compress and stretch over and over again. That was his whole life. But one day, the pen ran out of ink, and the owner was trying to change the cartridge. There was an accident. The spring fell out. He fell in the toilet. He got flushed through pipe after pipe. He thought it was the end of him. He was so afraid he couldn't open his eyes, and he couldn't stop crying. Finally, he ended up in a river. And when the river's current calmed down, he began to calm down and started to listen. He heard a bird, tweet, 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 tweet. And he heard wind going through the trees. Finally, he got brave enough to open his eyes. He was surrounded by crystal clear water and beautiful colored fish swimming around. After he played with the fish for a while, he crawled up to the shore and into a field of flowers. They heard weeping. He found a little flower that had been stepped on by a rabbit, and it couldn't stand up straight anymore. Well, the spring realized that he could lend support to the flower, and the flower agreed. So it climbed through the spring. The spring held it up, and they lived happily. And they would laugh whenever they remembered how the spring used to think that all there was to life was a pen, and he lived in sadness and fear. Changes aren't bad. It's up to us to open our eyes and make something positive of them. This week has brought joys and sorrows, celebrations and concerns to us as individuals, families, and community. I light this candle to honor what is in our hearts. Please share your joys and concerns in the chat. Remember that this is a public forum. If you wish support without disclosing details, please just type I, similar to raising two fingers in church.
Success by Bessie Stanley, often attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson. He has gained success, who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent people and the love of little children, who has lifted their heart and accomplished their task, who has left the world better than he found it, whether by an improved poppy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of the earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given the best they had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory a benediction. Good morning. I come to you from just outside of Chicago via videotape this morning. I had hoped to be with you in person, to see your familiar faces, to greet you and find out how life is moving forward. But we are in the midst of an unprecedented shutdown in our world. We've been asked to shutter ourselves away from each other so that a novel virus will wreak a more controlled havoc on our world. It is likely that someone in this community has already had a brush with this too able, unseen threat. I trust that we will make it to the other side of this as we always do, one step at a time, responding to the landscape we find ourselves within, hopefully with some grace and compassion. In times like these, we find out who we are bit by bit. As we have lived our lives, we may have grown to suspect who we are, but when calamity hits, our priorities and beliefs, our beliefs that we truly have, that belief, that faith that we have is laid bare before us. Are you a person who calls your neighbor, even if it's the one who complains about your cat catching birds, to check in? Or do you practice deeper social distancing? Are you the person who reaches out to give from what you have, or do you hoard? Have you searched online for ways to offer mutual aid to those on the margins, or have you acted with well-reasoned prudence? Times of need expose the greatest and deepest realities of many things. I find they affirm that I have been formed into a complicated individual, like many of you, by my choices, by my circumstances, but also by my ancestors. And so I take a moment today to remember who I am and where I came from. My name is Karen Mooney. Our version of Mooney came to America from Ireland before the Revolutionary War. I'm not sure how, but I do know that it comes from the center of the Irish countryside where the green hills yield grain and wool. It is derived from one of the oldest names in Ireland, anglicized from monarch. But my lived understanding of being a movie resides in its family crest, a lizard in a tree. I want to point out that a tree in Ireland is not the first place I would go to look for a lizard. But neither would I expect to see these slightly nerdy, tube sock wearing, street shoe wielding people who make up my hyper intellectual family riding bikes across America. and yet there they are, one and the same. In my imagination, my ancestors got to the whole "you need to pick a symbol" gathering kind of late, and since all the lions and flowers or armor choices were gone, they went for the next best thing, a lizard in a tree. This lizard in a tree is actually a private joke that I use when I do something utterly odd. I am my people. So today, I remember my family crest, this thing of odd pride. I am Karen Mooney, daughter of Janet and Terry, sister of Suzanne with an S and Larry, granddaughter of Babs and Ralph, Johnny and Gardner, great-granddaughter of Maud, Sarah, Mudsey, and Letitia. People whose names I no longer remember, but whose tintype pictures show up when rifling through boxes as we try to organize a lifetime of memories. I come from women, strong, quiet, opinionated, obstinate, cranky, and compassionate. Women who handed down a way of seeing the world with curious and discerning and suspicious eyes. Women who taught me to be fierce and stand my ground. Women who gave me an inheritance of life to be lived in its fullest, even though they may never have imagined it. The story goes that Sarah, my great-grandmother, once shouted from a second-story window to her son Ralph, "Stand still!" and then proceeded to shoot and kill a rattlesnake that was creeping up on him in the yard. She helped to form the First Unitarian Society of St. Louis. She was a Mooney, but had been raised at Bradford, which means that probably like many of you, I bring with you today a history that is complicated. William Bradford was the captain of the Mayflower. My ancestry dates back from the time when we European white folk claimed land that first belonged to First Nations people in order to have religious freedom. I've not found evidence, perhaps because I have not looked that hard, but I suspect members of my family owned slaves. Remembering how we were formed is complicated because life is complicated. Sometimes the gifts that we were given were shiny things that brought joy, but not always. Knowing my family history brings mixed feelings. I suspect I'm not alone in this. Your family story may include addiction sitting next to brilliant creativity. Maybe violence sits next to compassion. Perhaps isolation is found next to belonging. Every person that I have ever known, every person I've ever known well, is flawed. And every full story is imperfect. The story of Sarah Bradford Mooney is not the sort of table talk one brings up when attending progressive liberal gatherings today. Still, it is mine. It is my history, and so it must be honored by me. Today I remember Sarah. Sarah, whose story I remember tenacity and courage. And that with these mixed with skill or luck, I might be able to give life to an unsuspecting child playing in the yard or someone else. I remember Ralph as well, who listened for once and obeyed. Today I remember William Bradford, Captain Bradford, whose bold arrogance saved one group of people and whose presence initiated the near annihilation of another. For him, I remember these words every day. Be not arrogant in your ignorance. Be curious about the world and those who live beside you. Be compassionate, not arrogant, especially in what you think you know. Today I remember Janet Watson Bump, Johnny, a woman of few words. I remember every morning that we went to visit them, waking up in her home to the smell of Pall Mall cigarettes. It seemed she was a fixture in that breakfast nook, looking out the window to something I could never see. As a child, I wonder if she slept. In the summer, when we visited, she was the one who cooked, and she was the one who would define what would happen in her kitchen. She would sometimes offer an opinion about what we were discussing, but mostly she just watched the world from that seat by the window. One summer I thought I would wake up early and surprise her. It took 4 or 5 days, 7 a.m., 6:45, 6:20, 5:55. Oh, finally, I found myself in the kitchen before her. What surprised me the most was how the quiet that seemed to seep from the walls when she sat there was gone. It was just a room. The suspense without her presence gone. When she did arrive, I don't remember her saying good morning, though I'm suspicious that she must have. She simply took up her place and brought life to a room that had been waiting for her to arrive. In that moment, I think I learned that there is a power in presence, a power in knowing a place so well that it knows you back, a power that I long for even now in my busy, always changing life. Here was a woman who did not need the approval of anyone. She was fine, sitting, knowing, watching. She did not need us to affirm who she was. The room she inhabited did that just fine. I was in awe. That day, I had no idea about the life that she had lived that allowed her to be so solid. It was only when she died that the stories unfolded through the pictures that we found. But I knew her. I knew her because she knew herself. The story went that she had traveled the world with my grandfather as the faithful companion and assistant. But the newspaper articles that we found and accolades, they told a whole different story. She was the one who had spent a lifetime discovering that birds from the wild could thrive in man-made habitats. It was Johnny who has a parasite named after her because she discovered it. Johnny, the graduate from home economics at Ithaca College, not Cornell University, who said, maybe we should clean the cages? Johnny, who gave up her empty nest to follow her husband through the Middle East to find and tend game birds. Johnny, who made it possible for Gardner to shine. Today I remember Johnny, who sat by the window and looked out into a world of her backyard and watched something I still long to know. Johnny, the person who taught me to hope that someday I might inhabit my skin so fully that I could be held in awe by a room. I come from women. These people float in my veins. Their lives quite literally allow me to breathe and walk as I do. I cannot say that theirs is the only influence, but they are of me and in me, these ordinary women who led extraordinary lives. I like the thought that all of it, has had some sort of influence on who I am today. Genetics may make up how we appear, balanced, beautiful, tall, fat, the shape of our eyes, the hue of our skin. Our people, even those long forgotten, might define the manners that we bring, the ideas that we share, the creative sparks we engage, the ways that we are in the world that we are not happy with. The experience of every person I have ever lived with or shared part of my life with has given me some gift. Patience, curiosity, strength, kindness, stubbornness, agility. Even those I have never met. All of this impacts who I am today. I've described my family for you in all its glories, but I could have shared the stories from my Chicago lesbian community, the singing groups that I have joined over the years, or the relationships I have with different political parties. I could have shared about my community's response in the throes of disaster. All of them have elements of wisdom and places of joy. Why do we talk about or remember the loved ones who have died? Remembering people that have impacted our worlds help us to understand that we are not the be-all and end-all of life, good or bad. Whether I like it or not, I'm a Bradford. My shrinking from that history does not serve me or the people I relate to. Remembering gives me the opportunity to change. Remembering those who make up the world in which we walk is perhaps a starting place for the trek forward with gratitude and forgiveness. Today, remembering lets me grab hold of this truth. Nothing in life is unique. Communities around the world are struggling right now. And communities around the world have survived pandemics in the past. They fought hard to act in love. They reached out to give. And they reached out so that they could claim the humanity of a moment shrouded by death. In our UU history, it was the women who helped to form the Sanitation League, giving life to the benefits of the Civil War. It was women who brought faith and education with them to the frontiers of the Midwest. Women who reminded us of the strength comes in many guises by fighting to be ordained. We live in a time that seems unprecedented, but that is only if we do not look further back than our small, mere lives. The shadows of how to survive a crisis well are in the stories of our past. And so we remember the stories of ordinary people living in extraordinary times, being human and humane. Remembering helps us be humble. Remembering reminds us that we are all connected. We are not the beginning of creation, nor are we the end. Our lives are informed by our pasts and will nurture and inform generations to come, if we're lucky. It is our challenge to live as if this is true. Our bodies are made up of ancient stars, and even long after we've gone, the choices that we've made and the loves we've shared will have repercussions into the future. Like Mary Oliver, we remember life is loving what is mortal, and hence flawed. As anyone who has ever faced a major illness knows for themselves, that living means holding on to what is close, and knowing and being known, and then it is letting go when it is time to let go. We are moving into a new time, my friends. We must remember that people in our past have known how to let go and may teach us in the very essence of our being how to do that as well. This awareness helps us make good choices. Choices not about what is easy or quick for today, but about what will affect the lives of people we will never know. Each of us is bound within this amazing gift of life. We are connected to one another. We are connected to the past. We are connected to the future. Have you ever considered that people dreamed of our being alive here today in this virtual time of a people of faith, living beyond what is known into this new way of being? They did not dream the specifics. They had faith that you would rise up and be a people willing to meet the day and do what's right. They may not have known our names, may not have even imagined what we would be doing, may not have been able to picture this virtual gathering or agreed with everything that's being done or planned, but they trusted in us as the future. And they let the ground that they were tending swell with possibility. Let us do the same, even in this time, even in this place. Let us remember and live with courage into what we know and is yet to be, with compassion, tenacity, and love. Let us live as if we know that tomorrow will come. But it will come with love if we live with love today. It will come with compassion if we can see the humane within humanity. It will come with a sense of curiosity and joy if we can let go of the arrogance that has brought us to this moment, to live into what is now rather than what we thought might be. Amen. And so may it be. Blessings on your journey.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth that liveth. What though the darkness round me grows, songs in the light it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to the rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are ringing. Send friends for shame or undefiled, how can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing?
This reading by Reverend Wayne Arnason. Take courage, friends. Take courage. The way is often hard. The path is never clear. And the stakes are very high. Take courage. For deep down there is a deeper truth. Another truth. You are not alone. Be well, my friends. in this week ahead. Be safe. Take care of yourself and those you love. We will meet again on the other side.
We extinguish the chalice here, that it may shine on in our hearts. May it light our path as we leave this gathering. May it guide our way until we are together again.